Hi, my name is Lauren Peate. I'm going to be talking about how to not be creepy with people data. So I'll speak first about my organization, Multitudes. Then I'll chat a bit about the data principles that we follow. And finally, at the end, I'll speak to how academics can help us and the opportunity I see for you all by working with the startup ecosystem. And the only thing I want to mention before I get started is that I'm not an ethics researcher or an academic. I'm someone who's doing this work in an applied setting. So, starting first with my organization and the work that we do, Multitudes provides insights and recommendations to unlock happier and higher performing teams. It was born out of work that I did previously running a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting business and seeing the gaps that people still have in really understanding how their teams are actually doing. So that's the problem we're solving. We have a GitHub integration and we look at data from pull requests, from comments and reviews. And then from that, we can pull out insights around how the work is flowing, around collaboration or support or indicators of well-being. And then from that, we both pull out insights for team members and then also nudge them to take action. So if we see that one person on the team is getting much less support, we would then nudge the manager and others on the team to be more proactive in giving support to that person. And our bigger goal with this work is to be part of creating a world where equity is the default at work. So we want to see a world where people are treated fairly at work. You can see that our goal here is around positive impact. And at the same time, though, we're in a space where creepy things happen, which is why this conversation is so important. So on that note, I'm sure that you're all familiar with some of the risks of looking at people data and the ways it's been used to perpetuate racism or poverty or other types of oppression. One example is how some of the algorithms that have been used in policing have further encoded racism. So that's on the risk side, but of course we also know that data can be used for good. So Project Include does great work with tech companies around making their workplaces more equitable. And the Human Rights Data Analysis Group does work around using data to point out human rights abuses. So we see data ethics as an incredibly important part of translating good intent into good outcomes. And that leads me to our 5 data principles. I'll read these quickly and then in a moment I'll go through them in more detail. So ours are autonomy, reciprocity, collective benefit, context, and accountability. Autonomy means that we give people control over how their data is used. Before we work with an organization, we have the manager tell the team about Multitudes, the data we look at, and to what end, and then people have the chance to opt out. And we have had people take us up on this, and we've gotten great feedback along the way. And by great, I mean important feedback that's helped our product improve. The second is reciprocity. We only collect people's data if we can give them value from it. So since we're looking at data about teams, the first group that we need to make sure we're providing value to is those teams and team members. And you can see this with some of the measures that we're looking at. On the well-being one, for example, being able to point out who's more at risk of burnout and helping the team take appropriate action. The third is around collective benefit. We use data to create positive impact for people. The first thing we needed to do on this to make sure we're achieving it is actually to measure our impact and report on it. So as an example, every single month, we look at the well-being indicators for our own team that we measure with Multitudes and then report back on those to see how we're tracking with our team and also the teams that we work with. Our fourth one is context. We support people to put the data into perspective. This one is incredibly important for us because data never exists in a vacuum. It's shaped by the data that's available, the questions we ask, and ultimately by the bigger social systems that we're part of. So we weave this into our work in a few ways. The first is in our product, having conversation starters along the insights. The conversation starters are a reminder to bring people and that perspective into the data to round out the full picture. And then the second place, another example of where we think about this is with our team and understanding the social systems we're part of. So one example of that is that our team, which is based mostly in New Zealand, is doing a series of workshops on the Treaty of Waitangi, or Te Tiriti o Te Waitangi, and learning about the history of colonization and associated inequities in this country. And then our last principle is around accountability. And this one really uh, is a framing for all of the others that I've just covered. So we encourage people to tell us when we make mistakes. These principles are one way for our team to hold each other to account. And we're just now starting to share them publicly so that it's easier for others outside of our organization to hold us to account too. So those are our principles. And I'd love to switch next to where you all come into this. I think that you have a real opportunity to shape the future of tech by partnering with startups. And I know that usually you're working with much larger organizations. And so let me give you my pitch for why we're a great group to consider. The first is that we're building new systems. So the potential for impact is huge. You can help us do things differently right from the beginning. The second is that we're all about being agile and experimenting and learning. So there's fewer hoops to jump through when you work with us, and our own experimentation processes lend themselves really well to partnering over research and your processes. And then the last reason is that some of us will have a big impact on the industries we're part of. Some of us will get acquired by larger players, and some of us will become those larger players too. There are some challenges. We're time poor. We have not that many people and some big goals, so we're often moving quickly. And there are a lot of startups, so it could be hard to know who to partner with. So my proposal is that you connect with VCs, with accelerators, other funders in this space. I would love to see, for example, you helping provide input to them on the types of data ethics principles that they should use as criteria before they even choose to invest in a data-based startup. Another thing that would be amazing is if you worked with some of the funders out there to create some practical guides that translate your research, and both on the data mining side, but also on what it means to do that in an ethical way, and then translate it into practical tips for us as founders to be able to use. And then finally, of course, finding startups to partner with, which some of these funders can do. And there's certainly plenty of us, including us at Multitudes, who are really keen to do that type of partnership. So in closing, I hope that sharing our journey as we attempt to not be creepy with our data uses gives you some inspiration for how you consider ethics in your work. I know that for us, certainly, we want to see more of the data mining research baked in together with those considerations of ethics. And I also hope that this talk has gotten you excited about partnering with startups. So thank you, and I look forward to chatting more in the Q&A.